that I found this morning. 18 signs of the collapse of society is accelerating. There's also another 12 there, but you can read all about it. There is an alarm bell, and that's what these stories are really all about. The violence. Number 4 states, this most recent Memorial Day weekend, cities all over America literally turned into war zones. There were reports of mass violence in Miami, New York, Chicago, Charlotte, Myrtle Beach, Nashville, and Boston, among other places. Then they point out something else that is disturbing and is happening here in New York, mob robbing. That's number 18. Quote, from coast to coast, mob robbing has become a very disturbing trend. So what is a mob robbing? Well, that's basically dozens of kids going in and storming into a store together and grabbing whatever they want and then leaving. Recent examples of this have been caught on video in Washington, D.C., and Las Vegas, and here in New York. And have you heard about the violence in Chicago? I know this is getting some press coverage, but really? Their youth in Chicago is so out of control, tourists are now being told not to go to the Magnificent Mile, which is the city's primary shopping district. Again, they're not talking about the West Bank or sections of Beirut. We're talking about Chicago, Illinois. From the Wall Street Journal, quote, police here are girding for another weekend of flash mob attacks after arresting 29 people in connection with a recent rash of assaults and robberies in and around the city's shopping and dining district. 12 crimes involving large groups of young men were reported last weekend, in addition to others earlier this spring. The attacks have received wide attention in Chicago because they have occurred around the city's affluent north side, including near the Magnificent Mile, a Michigan Avenue strip popular with tourists. On Memorial Day in Chicago, there were at least 6 dead, at least 21 wounded in separate incidents. That would be, America, a terrible day for our troops in Afghanistan, but it's in Chicago. Last April, Chicago lawmakers begged for the National Guard. Fox reported, quote, 2 lawmakers who believe violence had become so rampant in Chicago that the Illinois National Guard must be called up to help. They made a public plea to the governor to deploy troops. The reason why I bring this up is because this is part of the preparation. We have just assumed that our children will be like us, but they don't have the foundation that we had. It's imperative that now, as responsible citizens who are awake, that we don't just sit in front of our TVs and say, yeah, yeah, or even better, yeah, well, we're America and we'll always be America. Let me tell you something. It's imperative that you get involved. Turn the damn TV off right now if you have to. Talk with your kids and your grandkids. Teach them through example. They don't learn just through osmosis. They're not trees. It must be taught. It must be taught first to ourselves. How much have you learned on this program that you didn't even know 27, 29 months ago? It has to be taught to you, and then we need to teach it to our families and our neighbors. Save your family, save America. Tomorrow I'm starting a new project on the Constitution, and you can find out all about it at glennbeck.com. It's something that is very exciting, I think, to help teach the founding arguments, the original arguments about the Constitution, something that we must learn. It's the ultimate way of being prepared so you can save the Republic and the Western way of life. Back in a minute. All right. Last week I shared with you the Muslim Brotherhood had pulled an acorn and changed their name. So now in Egypt, the Muslim Brotherhood is legally known as the Freedom and Justice Party. I mean, it looks like the EPA symbol, so it obviously has to be good. What's weird is it shares the same sentiment of the teachers union for 23,000 higher ed employees and professors in California. The California Faculty Association has a Peace and Justice Committee, which is weird for a teachers union. It's supposed to be, busy working for, quality education and fairness and for teachers and access to higher education, if I may just translate, getting the teachers unreasonably high pensions and then bankrupting the state. But strange because they have a strange interest in the plight of the Palestinians here. Like with this 2009 resolution, which blatantly slams Israel. It was spearheaded by a history professor with an obvious anti-Israel bias. By the way, not even worth mentioning, really. She's an Iranian immigrant who's on the organizing committee for the U.S. campaign for academic and cultural boycott of Israel. Now, to me, it makes me wonder, why is the California Teachers Union, an arm, a branch of SEIU, spending so much time on anti-Israel resolutions and also trying to get cop killers out of prison? Why are they spending so much time on that instead of just education? And is there any connection to the Middle East? Is there... only 14 more days. I'm sure somebody else in the press will worry about that. All right, here's another example of just how well this democratic revolution in Egypt is going. From Christian Today, quote, Eritrean Christians fleeing persecution in their homeland are facing imprisonment, torture, beatings, and sexual assault in Egypt, according to the Barnabas Fund, a charity that supports persecuted Christians. Hundreds of Eritrean Christians have now been subjected to terrible abuse after arriving in Egypt. Egypt is one of the most popular destinations for Christians escaping from Eritrea, one of the most hostile countries in the world for followers of Christianity. Now, rather than being welcomed with democratic tolerance and love, these Christians are suffering abuse at the hands of Egyptian authorities or Bedouin gangs, including rape and sexual harassment, torture, beatings, and slavery. Where's the media? Here's just some of the headlines of what democracy looks like now for Christians in Egypt. 2 churches are burned, 12 die, and as many as 180 wounded. Christian-Muslim clashes kill more than a dozen people. Christian man severely beaten coming home from work. 15 Christians killed, 23 Christians killed, 70 injured after a suicide bomber attacked a church. 2 Coptic Christians killed during a demonstration. 6 Coptic Christians and 1 Muslim killed following a Christmas mass. 6 Coptic Christians and 1 Muslim security guard killed in a church shooting. This revolution doesn't seem all that democratic, free, tolerant, or peaceful to me, but I don't work for Leon Panetta or the president. But sadly, this is what democracy looks like, which is why the United States is not a democracy, nor never has been. We are a republic. It is a republic that better wake up and stand up for the Christians and the Jews in the Middle East, or it will be too late. It is imperative that you know this information and tell all of your friends. You are going to be, you know, it's almost a little like Thomas Paine. It seems to me as we are almost back in the early American days of the Revolution, when the blogs are the pamphleteers of the American Revolution, where the American people are telling the truth because the mainstream media is either out and out lying, are in on it, or they are so blind that they just don't recognize the truth when it slaps them in the face. It is your responsibility as a responsible citizen to tell your friends exactly what is happening in the world. And what is happening is it's an attack on faith and freedom, and the Western way of life is at stake. Things are not going to get better this fall. They are going to get worse unless we can scare these people back into the caves and the holes the cockroaches crawled out of. The proverbial planes have flown into the towers, and we seem to be sitting at our desks pretending that it hasn't happened. Freedom is a rare gift and needs to be cherished. And only 5% of all of the people in the history of the world have actually experienced freedom. Think of that. Teach that to your children. 5% of all of mankind has had it like we do. This is a book that I came across a couple of weeks ago. I told you about it last week. We're going to invite the author to come on the show with us. The Miracle of Freedom, the seven tipping points that save the world. If you're anything like me, you will be up late at night reading this one. There were 7 points that the world could have gone into darkness, and instead, because of a few individuals, because people were educated or knew what was at stake, they stood. And because of that, the world tipped in favor of freedom. It really is up to us. It really is firm reliance in the protection of divine providence, because these rights do not belong to us. This freedom is not for our ability to go to a movie theater or whatever. It is for His purposes. I have no idea what His purposes are, but I know He is involved. Pick this book up, The Miracle of Freedom, 7 Tipping Points That Save the World. Find out about this book and also something on the original argument that I begin tomorrow. You can find out that information at glennbeck.com. These will be the times that try men's souls. And those of us who see what is on the horizon have an incredible responsibility and, quite honestly, privilege. But it is a choice. Will we sit silently as the world slips back into darkness, or will we be part of those who will make up the next great awakening? It is a choice. And the record of how you choose is being written right now. The thing I find a privilege is that our founders knew that our country would at some point falter. It would be perverted and the Constitution would start to be ignored. But they also believed, if you read their writings, that Americans who were living at that time would do the right thing. They were right. We are those people, and doing the right thing means to prepare for tough times, to teach our kids about the Constitution, to reach out to our houses of worship, connect arms with one another. And one more thing, don't wait for the feds. As our founders knew, any government will fail you every time at best, but your friends, family, and your God will not. From New York, good night, America.